Fade in. Exterior Los Angeles. Establishing. Exterior Los Angeles motel. Day. We see Kazimer Mikhail Orlov, a hired killer, walk up to a rundown motel in Los Angeles. He is on a mission. Kazimer Mikhail Orlov, VO, says,
I'm here in Los Angeles on a mission. I've been hired by Julian Lawler to take care of someone.
Interior motel room. Day. The door of the motel room swings open and Kazimer enters. He is greeted with a scene of shock and surprise. Jessica Lawler, Julian's wife, is in the room with her lover, Michael Howard. They have their hands in the air, frozen in fear of the gun Kazimer has pointed at them. Kazimer Mikhail Orlov says,
I'm here on behalf of Julian Lawler. This is the end for you both.
He takes out his gun and fires. We hear a series of gunshots as both Jessica and Michael are killed. Exterior motel. Day. Kazimer walks out of the motel, smirking. He takes out his cell phone and dials a number. Kazimer Mikhail Orlov says,
I've completed your mission, Julian. The job is done.
Julian Lawler says,
That's great. The money will be wired into your account.
Kazimer Mikhail Orlov says,
That's great. It's been a pleasure doing business with you.
Julian Lawler says,
Of course. Well, this is goodbye.
Kazimer Mikhail Orlov says,
Understood. Goodbye.
Kazimer ends the phone call. He makes another phone call, this time to a contact in the underworld, for a cleaner. Fade to Interior Police Station. Day. Chief of Police, Lamont Moses Foreman, stands in an office at the police station in Los Angeles, California. Lamont Moses Foreman says,
I'm preparing for my workday like any other, but then I got a call.
Exterior Local Mall. Day. There is a shootout in progress at the mall. Police cars rush to the scene. Several police officers step out of the vehicles. Interior Police Station. Day. Lamont Moses Foreman says,
I knew it was something serious. A shootout at the local mall? That's serious business.
Exterior Local Mall. Day. The police officers move into the mall, ready for action. Lamont is in the lead. Interior Local Mall. Day. The police officers sweep the area looking for any suspects or gunmen. Lamont Moses Foreman, O.S., says,
No policeman goes into a dangerous situation without a plan. We had one so that we could ensure everyone's safety.
Exterior Local Mall. Day. The police officers are seen apprehending the suspects. Lamont Moses Foreman, O.S., says,
By using our resources and collective knowledge, we were able to control the situation to protect the public and bring the perpetrators to justice.
Fade out. Chief of Police, Lamont Moses Foreman, stands in an office at the police station in Los Angeles with a sense of accomplishment. Fade in. Interior LAPD Police Station. Day. The Los Angeles Police Station. We see Officer Lamont Moses Foreman, the police chief of Los Angeles, talking to Detective Joel Sneeden. Lamont Moses Foreman says,
So, fill me in, Joel. What's the current status of the undercover investigation?
Joel Sneeden says,
We've made some progress. We've identified some of the key players associated with the smuggling ring.
Lamont Moses Foreman says,
Have you been able to make any inroads to their operations?
Joel Sneeden says,
Not yet, but we're making some headway.
Lamont Moses Foreman says,
All right, keep me updated.
Joel notices the medals on the wall near the desk. Joel Sneeden says,
Are these yours?
Lamont nods, looking at the medals. Lamont Moses Foreman says,
Yeah, I served as a Navy SEAL for a while during the Gulf War.
Joel Sneeden says,
Wow, that's impressive.
Lamont Moses Foreman says,
It was a long time ago.
Lamont turns back to Joel. Lamont Moses Foreman says,
Let me know when you have something more concrete for me.
Joel Sneeden says,
Will do.
Joel stands up and moves to the door. Joel Sneeden says,
I'll keep you posted.
Lamont nods as Joel exits the room. Fade out. Fade in. Exterior Los Angeles International Airport. Day. The massive Los Angeles International Airport looms in the background. The sky is full of aircraft taking off and landing. A single figure stands outside of the terminal, looking up at the sky. As the camera approaches, we recognize the figure as Salvador Rafael Delgado, a drug lord. Salvador Rafael Delgado says,
Ah, Los Angeles. Always a sight to behold.
He takes a deep breath and steps into the terminal. Interior Airport Terminal. Moments later, Salvador Rafael Delgado strides confidently down one of the main concourses. People move aside to make way for him, and he is met with whispers of recognition and admiration. Salvador Rafael Delgado says,
Time to meet my business partner.
He reaches the end of the terminal, where a man waits for him, a business partner. They exchange nods and shake hands. Business partner says,
Welcome to Mr. Delgado. Shall we?
Delgado nods, and the two of them make their way out of the terminal. Fade in on Jessica Robertson, a newspaper reporter, walking through the Los Angeles International Airport. Jessica Robertson says,
What a beautiful airport. I'm sure I'll find something interesting to report on here.
Suddenly, she spots Salvador Rafael Delgado, the notorious drug lord. Jessica Robertson says,
That's Salvador Rafael Delgado. I can't believe I'm seeing him here.
Jessica quickly takes out her camera and starts taking pictures of Delgado. Delgado notices Jessica and calls one of his guys over. Salvador Rafael Delgado says,
Get her.
The guy quickly grabs Jessica and starts dragging her away. Jessica Robertson says,
Help. Somebody, help me.
Cut to later, Jessica is nowhere to be seen. Delgado and his guy have disappeared. Suddenly, there is a loud scream from somewhere in the airport. Fade out. Interior Los Angeles bar. Day. Kazimer Mikhail Orlov, a hitman, sits at the bar. He looks tired and weary from his latest mission. He takes a sip of his drink. A biker notices Kazimer and walks up to him. He looks angry and clearly wants to fight. Biker says,
Hey, you looking for a fight?
Kazimer looks up at the biker, unimpressed. Kazimer Mikhail Orlov says,
No.
Biker says,
Come on, I ain't afraid of you.
Kazimer stands up and looks at the biker with a cold stare. The biker takes a step back, intimidated by Kazimer's presence. Kazimer Mikhail Orlov says,
You should be.
The biker throws a punch at Kazimer, but Kazimer easily catches it and throws him to the ground. The biker begs for mercy. Biker says,
Please, don't hurt me.
Kazimer looks at the biker and relents. He takes a step back and lets him go. Kazimer Mikhail Orlov says,
Go.
The biker scurries away. Kazimer takes out his phone and sees he has a call from his contact in the underworld, a cleaner. He answers the call. Cleaner says,
Kazimer, the job is done. Everything's been taken care of.
Kazimer takes a deep breath and looks around the bar. Kazimer Mikhail Orlov says,
Good.
Fade to exterior Cornelia's house. Evening. Cornelia Keith, a prostitute, is at her home in the city of Los Angeles, California, United States of America. It is early evening. She is about to start her shift as a prostitute, claiming she has a night shift at the grocery store. Interior Cornelia's house. Evening. Inside the house, Cornelia is getting ready to leave for work. Her son, Motby Keith, is there with her and they are joined by Julia Smith, the babysitter. Cornelia Keith says,
I'm heading out now. I'll be back in a few hours. Make sure Motby goes to bed on time.
Julia Smith says,
Yes, of course. Don't worry about him. I'll take care of him.
Cornelia Keith says,
Okay, thank you.
Cornelia gives Motby a kiss on the forehead and then leaves the house. Exterior bar. Evening. At the same time, Salvador Rafael Delgado is at a bar, making plans. He had learned about Kazimer Mikhail Orlov, and has learned that Motby is Kazimer's illegitimate son. He comes up with the plan to kidnap Motby to force him to work for him, so he recruits a goon to perform the mission. Salvador Rafael Delgado says,
I need you to do me a favor. I need you to kidnap a child.
Goon says,
What? Are you crazy?
Salvador Rafael Delgado says,
Just hear me out. I'll pay you well for it.
Goon says,
Okay, I'm listening.
Salvador Rafael Delgado says,
That's what I'm talking about.
Goon says,
So, who's this kid who want me to kidnap?
Salvador Rafael Delgado says,
It's Motby Keith.
Goon says,
Who?
Salvador Rafael Delgado says,
He's the son of Cornelia Keith.
Goon says,
I get it now.
The goon thinks of something. Goon says,
Why do you want the kid?
Salvador Rafael Delgado says,
I have good reason to think he is the illegitimate son of Kazimer Mikhail Orlov.
Goon says,
How on earth do you know of this?
Salvador Rafael Delgado says,
Let's just say, I have my ways.
Goon says,
Oh, you must have spies.
Salvador Rafael Delgado says,
Exactly.
Goon says,
I get it now. So, what are you gonna pay for this?
Salvador Rafael Delgado says,
I was thinking about this. This should be to your liking.
Goon says,
I like this a lot. Alright then, you have yourself a deal.
Salvador Rafael Delgado says,
That's great.
The goon leaves the area. Fade to interior Cornelia Keith's apartment. Night. The dimly lit apartment is cluttered with worn furniture and traces of a difficult life. A flickering neon sign outside casts intermittent shadows on the peeling wallpaper. Motvie Keith, a 10-year-old boy with a resilient spirit, sits on a tattered couch, absorbed in a comic book. Unbeknownst to him, danger lurks just outside the door. Cut to exterior apartment building. Night. A sleek black sedan pulls up to the curb. The sound of distant sirens pierces the quiet night. The goon, a hulking figure with a scarred face, steps out of the car. He adjusts the collar of his leather jacket and scans the surroundings with a predatory glint in his eyes. His name is Victor, and he's a ruthless enforcer in the employ of Salvador Rafael Delgado. Cut to interior Cornelia Keith's apartment. Night. Motvie senses something amiss and looks toward the door, his innocent eyes widening with fear. The faint sound of footsteps approaching echoes through the hallway. Cut to exterior apartment door. Night. Victor raises a gloved hand and delivers a series of sharp knocks. The fragile door rattles, prompting Motvie to tense up. 10. Motvie Keith says,
"Mom said never to open the door for strangers."
Cut to interior Cornelia Keith's apartment. Night. Motvie tiptoes to the door and peeks through the peephole. His eyes widen in terror as he sees Victor's intimidating figure. Before Motvie can react, Victor forcefully kicks the door, splintering the weak lock. The door swings open, revealing the menacing enforcer. Victor says,
Well, if it isn't the little Keith brat.
Motvie scrambles backward, knocking over a chair in his haste. Victor strides into the apartment with predatory confidence. Cut to exterior apartment building. Night. Victor drags a struggling Motvie out of the apartment and shoves him into the back seat of the waiting sedan. The engine roars to life as they speed away into the night. Fade out. Interior Victor's safe house. Night. The safe house is a dimly lit, nondescript building on the outskirts of the city. Motvie, now bound and gagged, is thrust into a dimly lit room. Victor looms over him, a sinister grin on his face. Victor says,
You're in for a rough ride, kid. The boss wants your mommy to pay her debts.
Motvie glares defiantly, setting the stage for a relentless pursuit and a quest for revenge that will test the limits of one woman's resilience and determination. 11. Exterior apartment building. Night. As the sedan speeds away with Motvie in tow, the camera pans across the desolate street. In the shadows, unnoticed by Victor, a weathered figure emerges from the darkness. Franklin Kingston, a middle-aged hobo with a grizzled beard and tattered clothing, sits slumped on a bench across the street. His eyes, though worn and tired, focus intently on the unfolding scene. Cut to Franklin squints, peering through the dimly lit night as the sedan disappears into the distance. A flicker of concern crosses his face as he witnesses the distressing events. Franklin Kingston says,
"Trouble in paradise, it seems."
He pushes himself up from the bench, determined to investigate further. Franklin hobbles across the street, weaving through the shadows with the stealth of someone accustomed to staying unnoticed. Cut to interior Victor's safe house. Night. Meanwhile, inside the dimly lit safe house, Victor glares at the bound Motvie, reveling in the success of his sinister mission. Little does he know, the threads of fate are already unraveling, and a guardian in the form of a hobo with a watchful eye is about to intervene. Cut back to exterior apartment building. Night. Franklin cautiously approaches the now broken door of Cornelia Keith's apartment. He scans the area, his keen instincts guiding him. Spotting the remnants of the shattered door, he narrows his eyes and grumbles to himself. Franklin Kingston says,
"Something ain't right here."
He glances around, catching a glimpse of a torn piece of Motvie's comic book on the ground. Franklin picks it up, his eyes narrowing with a mix of concern and determination. 12. Franklin Kingston says,
"Gotta do the right thing."
Cut to interior Victor's safe house. Night. Back at the safe house, Victor paces menacingly in front of Motvie. Unbeknownst to him, Franklin is on the move, determined to uncover the truth and become an unexpected ally in Cornelia's quest for revenge. Interior Cornelia Keith's apartment. Night. Franklin enters the apartment cautiously, glancing around. The dimly lit room is adorned with faded curtains and worn-out furniture. He spots a note on the counter, written hastily in Cornelia's handwriting. Franklin Kingston says,
Well. Seems like I stumbled upon a mother's secret life."
He reads the note, realization crossing his face. Cut to exterior red light district. Night. Franklin hurries through the narrow alleys of the district, determined to find Cornelia Keith. He spots her silhouette in the distance, standing under a flickering streetlight. Cut to Cornelia, her face marked by years of hardship, turns to face Franklin as he approaches. Cornelia Keith says,
Who are you? What do you want?
Franklin Kingston says,
Name's Franklin Kingston. I saw what happened to your boy.
Cornelia's eyes widen with a mix of fear and desperation. 13. Cornelia Keith says,
Where is he? Who took Motvie?
Franklin Kingston says,
There's no time. We gotta talk. Follow me.
Cut to interior abandoned warehouse. Night. Franklin and Cornelia enter the dimly lit warehouse. Franklin carefully recounts the events, explaining the involvement of Salvador Rafael Delgado and his goon Victor. Cornelia's face contorts with a mixture of anger and sorrow. Cornelia Keith says,
Salvador Delgado. I should have known this would catch up with me.
Franklin Kingston says,
There's someone you need to contact, someone who can help. A man named Kazimer Mikhail Orlov.
Cornelia Keith says,
Kazimer. I haven't spoken to him in years.
Franklin Kingston says,
He's known as the Master of Death. Trust me, if anyone can help, it's him.
Cornelia takes a deep breath, realizing the gravity of the situation. With a determined nod, she reaches for her phone. Cornelia Keith says,
I hope Kazimer is as good as they say.
Fade out. Interior Kazimer Mikhail Orlov's apartment. Night. Cornelia paces nervously as she waits for Kazimer to answer the phone. The room is dimly lit, adorned with the remnants of a past life that once held happiness and normalcy. 14. Kazimer Mikhail Orlov, a rugged and enigmatic figure, answers the call. His voice carries an air of authority and experience. Kazimer Mikhail Orlov, OS, says,
Cornelia, it's been a long time. What brings you back into my world?
Cornelia Keith says,
Kazimer, it's Motvie. He's been kidnapped. I don't know who else to turn to.
Kazimer Mikhail Orlov, OS, says,
Kidnapped, you say. Tell me everything.
Cornelia recounts the horrifying events, leaving out no detail. Kazimer listens attentively, his expression growing more serious with each word. Kazimer Mikhail Orlov, OS, says,
I'll find your boy, Cornelia. No one escapes the grasp of the Master of Death.
Cut to interior Victor's safe house. Night. Victor, the menacing enforcer, speaks into a secure line, his voice low and gravelly. Victor says,
Boss, I got the kid, Cornelia's son. What's the next move?
Salvador Rafael Delgado says,
Excellent, Victor. You've done well. Bring the boy to the designated location. I have another piece on the chessboard. A high-stakes bonus for you.
15. Victor says,
Bonus. What's the catch?
Salvador Rafael Delgado says,
The catch is another pawn in our game. I've taken Sally Foreman, daughter of the LAPD chief. This will ensure no interference from the law.
Victor's eyes narrow, a sinister grin forming on his scarred face. Victor says,
Double the trouble, double the fun. Consider it done, Salvador.
Cut to interior unknown location. Night. Sally Foreman, bound and gagged, struggles against her restraints. The room is dark, and her muffled cries for help go unheard. Exterior deserted industrial area. Night. Victor, driving a nondescript van, glances at Motvie in the back seat. The young boy, frightened but determined, meets Victor's gaze with unwavering courage. Motvie Keith says,
You can't keep us here forever. My mom will find us.
Victor says,
Your mom's got bigger problems now, kid.
Cut to interior Kazimer Mikhail Orlov's apartment. Night. Cornelia hangs up the phone, her face etched with determination. She turns to Franklin. 16. Cornelia Keith says,
We need to move fast. Kazimer is on our side, but we can't let Salvador get away with this.
Franklin Kingston says,
What's the plan?
Cornelia Keith says,
First, we find out where they're keeping Motvie. Then, we deal with Salvador and his goon.
Cut to exterior unknown location. Night. Sally Foreman, still bound, hears footsteps approaching. The door creaks open, revealing Salvador Rafael Delgado's sinister silhouette. Sally Foreman says,
You won't get away with this. My father will.
Salvador Rafael Delgado says,
Your father is a pawn in a game much larger than him.
Cut to interior Kazimer Mikhail Orlov's apartment. Night. Cornelia and Franklin, armed with newfound determination, plan their next move. Cornelia Keith says,
We need to gather information. Franklin, find out where Victor might be hiding.
Franklin Kingston says,
I know a few places to start asking questions.
Cornelia Keith says,
And I'll reach out to Kazimer. We'll coordinate from there.
Fade out. 17. Exterior deserted industrial area. night. The van carrying Motvy and Victor comes to a stop in a remote location. Victor grins as he opens the van door. Victor says,
"Time to meet your new friend."
Motvy braces himself for what's to come, unaware of the impending clash between the forces of revenge and the ruthless underworld. Interior Lamont Moses Foreman's house. Night. The night hangs heavy as Lamont Moses Foreman, the chief of police, sits in his living room, engrossed in paperwork. Cut to angle on Lamont's phone. It buzzes with an incoming call. The caller ID displays Angela Foreman's name. Lamont Moses Foreman says,
Angela, what's wrong?
Angela Foreman, VO, says,
Lamont, it's Sally. She's been kidnapped.
Lamont's eyes widen, his heart skipping a beat. Lamont Moses Foreman says,
What? When? How do you know?
Angela Foreman, VO, says,
They called. A man's voice. They want something, Lamont. They said if we involve the police, she's gone.
Lamont's grip tightens on the phone, anger and helplessness etched on his face. Lamont Moses Foreman says,
I won't let them dictate the terms. We'll find her. Where are you?
18. Angela Foreman, VO, says,
I'm on my way home. Lamont, be careful.
Lamont hangs up, his mind racing. He grabs his coat, badge, and gun. Cut to exterior Lamont Moses Foreman's house. Night. Lamont storms out of his house, determination etched on his face. He jumps into his unmarked police car and speeds off into the night. Cut to interior Kazimer Mikhail Orlov's apartment. Night. Cornelia anxiously waits for Kazimer to answer the call. The phone rings, and Kazimer picks up. Kazimer Mikhail Orlov, OS, says,
Cornelia, what do you need?
Cornelia Keith says,
Sally Foreman, the police chief's daughter, has been kidnapped along with my son. We need your help, Kazimer.
Kazimer Mikhail Orlov, OS, says,
I'll handle it. Meet me at the coordinates I'm sending you.
Cornelia receives the coordinates and nods, determination in her eyes. Cornelia Keith says,
We are on our way.
Fade out. Exterior deserted industrial area. Night. Motvy is led out of the van by Victor, who smirks at the unfolding chaos he believes he has orchestrated. 19. Victor says,
Say hello to your new friend, kid.
As Motvy looks around, the sound of approaching sirens pierces the air. The van's headlights reveal the silhouette of a police car arriving at the scene. Victor says,
What the hell?
Lamont Moses Foreman steps out of the police car, gun drawn, fury in his eyes. Lamont Moses Foreman says,
You picked the wrong girl, Victor.
The stage is set for a high-stakes confrontation, and the pieces are moving into position for a showdown that will determine the fate of those held captive in the twisted game of revenge and power. Exterior deserted industrial area. Night. Lamont Moses Foreman approaches Victor with a steely resolve, gun trained on the menacing enforcer. Lamont Moses Foreman says,
Where's my daughter, you son of a bitch?
Victor says,
You're not in a position to be asking questions, Chief.
Just as the tension reaches its peak, Kazimer Mikhail Orlov steps out of the shadows, his presence commanding attention. Lamont's eyes narrow, recognizing the infamous figure. Lamont Moses Foreman says,
You're the master of death, aren't you? What the hell are you doing here?
Kazimer Mikhail Orlov says,
I'm here to help. Your daughter and this boy are connected to a bigger
20. Kazimer Mikhail Orlov says,
game. We need to work together if we want to save them.
Lamont, reluctantly acknowledging the gravity of the situation, lowers his gun. Lamont Moses Foreman says,
Fine. But I'm keeping an eye on you, Orlov.
Kazimer Mikhail Orlov says,
That's fair. Now let's find a way to unravel this mess.
Cut to interior Kazimer's apartment. Night. Cornelia and Franklin arrive at Kazimer's apartment. The air is thick with tension as they join forces with Lamont and Kazimer to strategize. Cornelia Keith says,
We need to know where they're keeping Motvy and Sally.
Kazimer Mikhail Orlov says,
I have contacts. Let me make a few calls.
Cut to interior Joel Sneeden's office. Night. Lamont contacts Joel Sneeden, a detective with connections in the criminal underworld. Lamont Moses Foreman says,
Joel, it's Lamont. I need information on Salvador Rafael Delgado.
Joel Sneeden says,
Lamont, my man, you're looking into some serious stuff. Give me a moment.
Cut to 21. Joel works his contacts, gathering intel on Salvador Rafael Delgado. Joel Sneeden says,
Salvador's got a stronghold in the industrial district. I'll send you the details.
Lamont Moses Foreman says,
Thanks, Joel. This might be the break we need.
Fade out. Exterior Industrial District. Night. The team, now armed with crucial information, converges on the industrial district. The shadows of the looming warehouses serve as a backdrop for the impending confrontation. Exterior Industrial District. Night. The team cautiously navigates the dimly lit industrial area, guided by the information from Joel Sneeden. Unbeknownst to them, a shadowy figure observes from a distance, hidden in the shadows. This mysterious spy, unknown to our protagonists, reports back to Salvador Rafael Delgado. Cut to interior Salvador Rafael Delgado's hideout. Night. Salvador receives a call from the spy, who speaks in hushed tones. Spy says,
"Boss, they're onto you. They know about the industrial district."
Salvador Rafael Delgado says,
"How the hell did they find out?"
Spy says,
"I overheard their conversation. They're coming for you, Salvador."
Salvador clenches his fist, his mind racing as he contemplates the implications of the unexpected turn of events. 22. Salvador Rafael Delgado says,
"This changes everything. Be ready for them."
Cut to exterior industrial district. Night. As the team approaches the suspected location, the air becomes charged with tension. Lamont, Kazimer, Cornelia, and Franklin cautiously move forward, unaware of the lurking danger. Cornelia Keith says,
"Something doesn't feel right. Stay alert."
Suddenly, the team is ambushed by a group of armed thugs, emerging from the shadows. A fierce gunfight ensues, bullets echoing through the industrial silence. Lamont Moses Foreman says,
"We've walked into a trap."
Kazimer, displaying his lethal skills, takes down several assailants, but the odds are overwhelming. Cut to the shadowy figure watches the chaos unfold, relaying the ongoing situation to Salvador. Spy says,
"They're trapped, boss. It's a full-blown firefight."
Salvador Rafael Delgado says,
"Excellent. Let them come to me."
Cut back to the team fights valiantly, seeking cover amidst the industrial machinery. The situation seems dire until an unexpected ally arrives, a mysterious stranger with impeccable combat skills, clad in a dark trench coat and wearing a mask. 23. Mysterious stranger says,
"Need a hand."
The stranger joins the fray, turning the tide in their favor. Cornelia Keith says,
"Who are you?"
Mysterious stranger says,
"For now, call me Shade. We have a common enemy."
Together, they continue their assault against the thugs, determined to reach the heart of the industrial district and confront Salvador Rafael Delgado. Exterior Industrial District. Night. The gunfire intensifies as Shade, the mysterious ally, fights alongside Lamont, Kazimer, Cornelia, and Franklin. Together, they manage to overpower Salvador's henchmen. Cornelia Keith says,
"Thanks for the help, Shade."
Shade says,
"This isn't over. Salvador won't be easy to reach."
As the last thug falls, the team regroups, catching their breath amidst the chaos. Lamont Moses Foreman says,
"Where's Salvador?"
Kazimer Mikhail Orlov says,
"He must have slipped away during the chaos."
Cornelia Keith says,
"We can't let him escape."
Suddenly, the shadowy figure, who had been observing from a distance, emerges from the shadows. It's the same spy who, 24, works for Salvador. Spy says,
"You're too late. Salvador's long gone."
Lamont, fueled by anger and determination, grabs the spy. Lamont Moses Foreman says,
"You're going to tell us where he went."
The spy smirks, revealing a hidden cyanide capsule. Before anyone can react, the spy bites down on it, collapsing to the ground. Franklin Kingston says,
"Damn it. He'd rather die than talk."
Kazimer Mikhail Orlov says,
"Salvador is one step ahead of us."
Cornelia Keith says,
"We won't let him get away with this."
Fade out. Interior Kazimer's apartment. Later, the team regroups at Kazimer's apartment, discussing their next move. Kazimer Mikhail Orlov says,
"Salvador won't stay hidden for long. We need to regroup and find another way to track him down."
Lamont Moses Foreman says,
"I'll use every resource I have to locate him."
Cornelia Keith says,
"And who is this mysterious ally?"
25. Shade says,
"Just someone who has a score to settle with Salvador. I'll be around."
As the team plans their next move, the realization sets in that Salvador Rafael Delgado has managed to evade their grasp once again. Interior Kazimer's apartment. Night. The team, disheartened by the spy's sacrifice and Salvador's escape, regroups in the dimly lit apartment. Tension hangs in the air as they discuss their next steps. Lamont Moses Foreman says,
"We let Salvador slip through our fingers. We need a lead, anything that can help us find him.
Kazimer Mikhail Orlov says.
We'll find another way, Lamont. Salvador won't stay hidden for long.
Cornelia Keith says.
We can't let him taunt us like this. We need to act.
As the team delves into their plans, Lamont's phone suddenly rings. The caller ID displays an unknown number. Hesitant, Lamont answers. Lamont Moses Foreman says.
Who is this?
Salvador Rafael Delgado, VO, says.
Ah, Lamont, my old friend. It's been too long.
Lamont's face tightens, recognizing Salvador's voice. Lamont Moses Foreman says.
Where's my daughter, you coward?
26. Salvador Rafael Delgado, VO, says.
Oh, Lamont, you're too late. Your precious Sally is in my custody, but don't worry, she's alive. For now.
Lamont's fists clench in frustration. Lamont Moses Foreman says.
You won't get away with this.
Salvador Rafael Delgado, VO, says.
You had your chance, Lamont. A pity you missed it. Now, let the real game begin.
The line goes silent as Salvador hangs up, leaving Lamont seething with anger. Cornelia Keith says.
We can't let him hurt Sally.
Kazimer Mikhail Orlov says.
We won't, but we need a new plan.
The team, fueled by a renewed sense of urgency, begins strategizing. Meanwhile, Salvador Rafael Delgado watches from the shadows, confident that he holds the upper hand in this deadly game. Exterior City Alley. Night. Lamont, fueled by a newfound determination, tracks down Victor, the henchman who had kidnapped Motvy. Lamont corners Victor in a dimly lit alley, his eyes filled with rage. Lamont Moses Foreman says.
Where is my daughter, Victor? Tell me, or you won't walk away from this.
Victor, battered from the earlier confrontation, smirks defiantly. 27. Victor says.
You're too late, Chief. Salvador's got your daughter and the kid. You won't find them.
Lamont's frustration boils over, but before he can press further, Kazimer steps forward, a dangerous glint in his eyes. Kazimer Mikhail Orlov says.
You better start talking, Victor. Where did Salvador take them?
Victor says.
Salvador's got them stashed away in a place you'll never find. It's a game, and you're losing.
Lamont, desperate for answers, grabs Victor by the collar. Lamont Moses Foreman says.
You tell me where my daughter is, or I swear.
Victor says.
You swear what? You can't save them. Salvador is always one step ahead.
As tensions rise, Kazimer turns to Cornelia, his expression questioning. Kazimer Mikhail Orlov says.
Cornelia, there's more to this. What aren't you telling us?
Cornelia hesitates, her eyes flickering between Kazimer and Lamont. Cornelia Keith says.
Motvy is your son, Kazimer.
Kazimer's eyes widen with surprise, and Lamont releases his grip on Victor. 28. Kazimer Mikhail Orlov says.
What?
Cornelia Keith says.
I never told you, Kazimer. Motvy is your son. I didn't want to involve you in this mess.
Kazimer absorbs the revelation, a mix of emotions crossing his face. Kazimer Mikhail Orlov says.
We have to find them. All of them. Let's work together.
The team, now aware of the personal stakes involved, regroups, united in their quest to rescue Sally, Motvy, and put an end to Salvador Rafael Delgado's cruel game. Exterior underground parking garage. Night. The team, now joined by the enigmatic Shade, heads towards the industrial district where Salvador Rafael Delgado is rumored to have a secret hideout. The tension is palpable as they move through the shadows, fueled by a shared determination to rescue Sally and Motvy. Cornelia Keith says.
I should have told you earlier, Kazimer. I didn't want to involve you, but now we need to focus on saving Motvy and Sally.
Kazimer Mikhail Orlov says.
We'll deal with that later. Right now, let's find them.
As they approach the entrance of the parking garage, they notice a hooded figure lurking in the shadows. The figure steps forward, revealing itself as Joel Sneeden, the detective. Joel Sneeden says.
Heard you were looking for Salvador. I've got some info that might help.
29. Lamont Moses Foreman says.
Speak up, Joel. We don't have time.
Joel Sneeden says.
Salvador has a hidden warehouse in the industrial district. It's heavily guarded, but that's where he's keeping them.
Kazimer Mikhail Orlov says.
Good. Let's move out.
Cut to interior Salvador's hidden warehouse. Night. Sally and Motvy are confined in a dimly lit room, hands bound. Salvador Rafael Delgado paces in front of them, a malevolent smile on his face. Salvador Rafael Delgado says.
Your fathers are on their way, my dear children. Let's see how they handle the reckoning.
Cut back to exterior industrial district. Night. The team, armed and determined, arrives at the entrance of Salvador's hidden warehouse. They exchange glances, a silent understanding passing between them. Kazimer Mikhail Orlov says,
"Stay close, and be ready for anything."
As they infiltrate the warehouse, navigating through the labyrinthine corridors, they encounter fierce resistance from Salvador's henchmen. The sound of gunfire echoes through the cold, metallic halls. Cornelia Keith says,
"We have to find them before Salvador does something drastic."
30. Suddenly, Shade spots a door guarded by two heavily armed thugs. Shade says,
"That's the way. I'll take care of them."
Shade swiftly and silently dispatches the guards, allowing the team to move forward. Cut to interior hidden room. Night. The team bursts into the room where Sally and Motvy are held captive. Salvador, caught off guard, faces the wrath of the determined group. Lamont Moses Foreman says,
"You're done, Salvador. Release them."
Salvador Rafael Delgado says,
"You're too late, Lamont. This is the end."
Just as Salvador reaches for a concealed weapon, a gunshot rings out. Salvador staggers, a look of disbelief on his face. Cut to Shade, with a smoking gun, stands in the doorway. Shade says,
"Your game ends here."
Salvador Rafael Delgado says,
"You traitor."
The team secures Sally and Motvy, but the victory is short-lived as Salvador, wounded but not defeated, makes a desperate move. Salvador Rafael Delgado says,
"You won't take me alive."
31. Salvador activates a hidden explosive device, creating chaos in the room. Cornelia Keith says,
"We need to get out of here."
The team, carrying Sally and Motvy, rushes towards safety as the warehouse erupts in chaos behind them. Interior Lamont Moses Foreman's office. Day. Days have passed since the explosive confrontation at Salvador's hidden warehouse. Lamont sits at his cluttered desk, visibly exhausted but determined. The room is dimly lit, reflecting the lingering tension in the air. Lamont's phone suddenly rings, jolting him from his contemplation. He answers with a mix of anticipation and weariness. Lamont says,
"What is it?"
The voice on the other end is distorted, likely masked to conceal the caller's identity. Distorted voice says,
"Surprised to hear from me, Lamont."
Lamont's eyes narrow as he recognizes the voice Salvador Rafael Delgado. Lamont Moses Foreman says,
"How did you survive? I saw the explosion."
Salvador Rafael Delgado, VO, says,
"Survival is an art, Lamont. I'm not so easily disposed of, but let's not dwell on the past. I have a proposal for you."
Lamont's frustration intensifies, but he listens, unable to ignore the dangerous game Salvador continues to play. 32. Lamont Moses Foreman says,
"What do you want?"
Salvador Rafael Delgado, VO, says,
"A final showdown, Lamont. You, me, and our respective allies. A place of my choosing, no interference from the law. If you decline, well, let's just say your daughter and her new friend might have some accidents."
Lamont grits his teeth, realizing that Salvador is tightening the noose around him. Lamont Moses Foreman says,
"Fine. But this ends one way or another."
Salvador Rafael Delgado, VO, says,
"I knew you'd see reason. I'll send you the details. Don't disappoint me, Lamont."
The call ends, leaving Lamont with a heavy heart and an ominous sense of what lies ahead. Cut to exterior city skyline. Night. The team, including Kazimer, Cornelia, Franklin, and Shade, gather in a dimly lit rooftop meeting place. Lamont, with a grave expression, shares the news of Salvador's survival and the upcoming showdown. Lamont Moses Foreman says,
"We have no choice. Salvador wants a final confrontation. It's time to end this."
Kazimer Mikhail Orlov says,
"We'll be ready for whatever he throws at us."
Cornelia Keith says,
"I just want my son and Sally safe."
33. The team exchanges determined glances, knowing that the final battle is on the horizon. Salvador Rafael Delgado has orchestrated a deadly game, and the stakes have never been higher. Exterior abandoned warehouse. Night. The team, armed and prepared, arrives at the location chosen by Salvador Rafael Delgado. The abandoned warehouse looms in the darkness, an eerie silence enveloping the desolate surroundings. Lamont, leading the group, approaches the entrance cautiously. The air is thick with tension as they step into the dimly lit interior. Cut to interior abandoned warehouse. Night. Salvador, a malevolent grin on his face, stands at the far end of the warehouse. He is surrounded by shadows, his presence foreboding. Salvador Rafael Delgado says,
"Lamont, my old friend, I'm impressed you made it."
Lamont glares at Salvador, his fists clenched, but he refrains from making any rash moves. The rest of the team positions themselves strategically, ready for the inevitable confrontation. Lamont Moses Foreman says,
"This ends tonight, Salvador. Where are my daughter and Matvey?"
Salvador Rafael Delgado says,
"All in good time, Lamont. First, let's have some fun."
Suddenly, the warehouse doors slam shut, trapping the team inside. The atmosphere becomes suffocating as a series of blinding spotlights illuminate the area. Cut to, hidden gunmen emerge from the shadows, surrounding the team with weapons drawn. Salvador revels in the chaos he, 34, orchestrated, Salvador Rafael Delgado says.
"You see, Lamont, I appreciate the theatrics. Now, let the games begin."
The team is forced to drop their weapons as the gunmen approach, disarming them. Cornelia Keith says,
"Just tell us where they are, Salvador. This doesn't have to end in bloodshed."
Salvador Rafael Delgado says,
"Bloodshed is the only language some people understand, Cornelia."
As Salvador taunts them, Shade discreetly slips away, blending into the shadows. Cut to, a mysterious figure, hidden in the rafters, begins taking out the gunmen one by one. Cornelia Keith says,
"What's happening?"
Lamont Moses Foreman says,
"Looks like Salvador underestimated us."
As the gunmen fall, the team seizes the opportunity to reclaim their weapons. Salvador Rafael Delgado says,
"This isn't over."
A fierce firefight ensues, echoing through the warehouse as the team fights their way towards Salvador. Cut to, 35. Shade, moving with precision, takes down the remaining gunmen, ensuring the odds are now in their favor. Salvador Rafael Delgado says,
"Realizing, you think you can defeat me."
Lamont, fueled by determination, closes in on Salvador. Lamont says,
"Your reign of terror ends now."
The final confrontation between Lamont and Salvador looms, with the fate of Sally, Matvey, and justice hanging in the balance. Exterior abandoned warehouse. Night. The gunfire subsides as Lamont and Salvador face each other in the dimly lit warehouse. The atmosphere is charged with tension as their eyes lock, both men determined to emerge victorious. Lamont Moses Foreman says,
"Your games end here, Salvador."
Salvador Rafael Delgado says,
"You're more entertaining than I expected, Lamont. Let's see how this unfolds."
The two adversaries engage in a fierce hand-to-hand combat, exchanging blows and grappling for control. The rest of the team remains vigilant, watching the showdown unfold. Cut to, Shade, still in the shadows, observes the fight, ready to intervene if necessary. Cornelia Keith says,
"We need to help Lamont."
Kazimer Mikhail Orlov says,
"Let them settle this. Lamont's got it under control."
36. As the fight intensifies, Lamont gains the upper hand, landing a series of powerful blows on Salvador. The drug lord, bloodied and battered, struggles to maintain his composure. Lamont Moses Foreman says,
"Tell me where they are, Salvador. This ends now."
Salvador Rafael Delgado says,
"You think defeating me will solve everything. You're naive, Lamont."
Suddenly, Salvador activates a hidden trap, releasing a cloud of smoke that obscures the entire area. When the smoke clears, both Lamont and Salvador are gone. Cut to, the team, disoriented, looks around, realizing the enemies and their leaders have vanished. Cornelia Keith says,
"Where did they go?"
Kazimer Mikhail Orlov says,
"Salvador always has an escape plan."
Cut to, interior, Salvador's secret location. Night. Salvador, nursing his wounds, stands in a hidden control room, watching the team through surveillance cameras. Salvador Rafael Delgado says,
"This is just the beginning, Lamont. The game continues."
Cut back to, exterior abandoned warehouse. Night. The team, frustrated and determined, regroups outside the warehouse. 37. Lamont Moses Foreman says,
"We can't let him escape again."
Kazimer Mikhail Orlov says,
"We need to regroup, figure out his next move."
Cornelia Keith says,
"He's always one step ahead."
The team, faced with the reality of Salvador's cunning, prepares for the next phase of the relentless pursuit. Exterior city streets. Night. The team, determined and fueled by a renewed sense of urgency, disperses into the city streets. Lamont, Kazimer, Cornelia, Franklin, and Shade regroup at a hidden location. Lamont Moses Foreman says,
"We can't let Salvador slip away again. We need to find him before he causes more harm."
Kazimer Mikhail Orlov says,
"Salvador is always steps ahead. We need a new strategy."
Franklin Kingston says,
"I know someone who might have information. A contact in the underground."
Lamont nods, realizing that they need every lead they can get. The team sets out to meet Franklin's contact. Cut to interior underground club. Night. The team enters a dimly lit, clandestine club where the air is thick with the scent of secrecy. The pulsating beat of music masks their conversation as they approach Franklin's contact, a shadowy informant. 38. Shadowy informant says,
"What do you need, Franklin?"
Franklin Kingston says,
"Information on Salvador Rafael Delgado. We need to find him."
Shadowy informant says,
"This is risky, even for me. What's in it for me?"
Franklin slides a wad of cash across the table, catching the informant's attention. Franklin Kingston says,
"Make it worth your while."
The informant glances around before leaning in, sharing a few whispered details. Shadowy informant says,
"Salvador has connections with a notorious arms dealer named Ivan Drakovich. They've been seen together in an abandoned factory near the docks."
Lamont, Kazimer, and the team exchange determined looks, realizing they have a lead. Lamont Moses Foreman says,
"Let's check it out. But be cautious, Salvador might be expecting us."
Cut to exterior abandoned factory. Docks. Night. The team cautiously approaches the abandoned factory near the docks, their senses heightened. The air is thick with tension as they prepare for the unknown. 39. Cornelia Keith says,
"I can't lose Motv. We have to find him."
Lamont puts a reassuring hand on Cornelia's shoulder as they move forward. Cut to interior abandoned factory. Night. The team stealthily infiltrates the factory, moving through darkened corridors and echoing halls. The distant sound of machinery adds to the eerie ambience. Kazimer says,
"Stay close and keep your guard up."
They reach a large room where they spot Ivan Drakovich, a formidable figure surrounded by crates of weapons. Salvador Rafael Delgado stands nearby, a sinister smile on his face. Salvador Rafael Delgado says,
"I knew you'd come, Lamont. You're so predictable."
Lamont Moses Foreman says,
"This ends tonight, Salvador."
A fierce standoff ensues, with the team facing off against Salvador and his armed associates. The echoes of gunfire fill the abandoned factory as they fight for the safety of their loved ones. Exterior abandoned factory. Docks. Night. The intensity of the battle reaches its peak as Lamont, Kazimer, and Shade press forward against Salvador and his remaining henchmen. The factory echoes with gunfire and the clang of metal, creating a chaotic symphony. Lamont Moses Foreman says,
"It ends here, Salvador."
Kazimer says,
"We won't let you harm anyone else."
40. Salvador, though battered and bloodied, remains defiant, lashing out with every ounce of strength. The fight becomes a relentless struggle for survival, each side refusing to back down. Cut to Cornelia, Motv, and Sally cautiously make their way through the factory, trying to avoid the crossfire. The sounds of battle echo through the halls as they move towards the exit. Cornelia Keith says,
"We're almost there. Just stay close."
The trio inches closer to the exit, hoping to reunite with the team and escape the unfolding chaos. Cut back to the battle between Lamont, Kazimer, and Salvador continues, each blow escalating the stakes. Suddenly, Salvador makes a desperate move, activating a hidden mechanism that starts the factory machinery. Salvador Rafael Delgado says,
"I'll leave you all to perish in my masterpiece."
The factory machinery comes to life, creating a hazardous environment for everyone inside. Lamont Moses Foreman says,
"We need to finish this now."
Kazimer and Shade join forces, overwhelming Salvador. However, the machinery's erratic movements add an unpredictable element to the fight. Cut to Cornelia, Motv, and Sally reaching the exit just as the factory machinery goes haywire. The trio is caught in the chaos, struggling to find safety. Cornelia Keith says,
"We need to get out of here."
41. They race against time, navigating through the hazardous environment as the team battles Salvador nearby. Cut back to the fight takes a dramatic turn as Salvador, weakened and desperate, tries to escape. Lamont and Kazimer pursue him, determined to bring an end to the madness. Lamont Moses Foreman says,
"It's over, Salvador."
As they corner him, Salvador, with a defiant smirk, activates a hidden explosive device. Salvador Rafael Delgado says,
"If I can't win, then no one will."
The explosive device counts down, and the team realizes they have seconds to escape the factory. Cut to Cornelia, Motv, and Sally desperately racing towards the exit as the explosive device nears detonation. Exterior Lamont's home. Day. Days have passed since the explosive encounter at the abandoned factory. Lamont, Angela, and Sally are at home, attempting to return to some semblance of normalcy. The scars of the recent events linger, casting a shadow over their lives. Lamont's phone rings, breaking the uneasy silence. He answers with a sense of caution. Lamont says,
"What do you want, Salvador?"
Salvador, VO, says,
"Impressive, isn't it? Surviving an explosion of that magnitude."
Lamont's grip tightens on the phone as he listens to Salvador's gloating. 42. Lamont says,
"You won't get away with this."
Salvador Rafael Delgado, VO, says,
"Oh, but I already have. And there's more you should know. Drakovich survived as well."
The revelation sends a chill down Lamont's spine. Lamont Moses Foreman says,
"What are you planning?"
Salvador Rafael Delgado, VO, says,
"Revenge, Lamont. A game that never truly ends."
The call ends abruptly, leaving Lamont with a sinking feeling of impending danger. Cut to interior Lamont's living room. Night. Lamont, Angela, and Sally sit in tense silence, grappling with the knowledge that Salvador and Drakovich are still at large. Angela Foreman says,
"We can't let them hurt our family again."
Lamont Moses Foreman says,
"We won't. We need to be one step ahead this time."
Cut to exterior city skyline. Night. The team, including Kazimer, Shade, and Franklin, regroups at a secure location. The lingering threat of Salvador and Drakovich hangs heavy in the air. 43. Kazimer Mikhail Orlov says,
"We underestimated them. We can't afford to make the same mistake again."
Franklin Kingston says,
"I have contacts digging into their whereabouts. We'll find them."
Cut to interior unknown location. Night. Salvador Rafael Delgado and Ivan Drakovich, hidden in the shadows, plot their next move. Salvador Rafael Delgado says,
"They think they can stop us. Little do they know, the real game is just beginning."
The duo shares a sinister glance, ready to unleash a new wave of chaos upon Lamont, his family, and anyone standing in their way. Interior secluded bar. Night. Lamont sits at the dimly lit bar, nursing a drink, his mind clouded with the recent threats from Salvador and Drakovich. Kazimer walks in, spotting Lamont, and joins him. Kazimer says,
"Lamont, we need to strategize. Find Salvador before he strikes again."
Lamont Moses Foreman says,
"I know, Kazimer. But we're dealing with shadows."
As they discuss their plans, a burly biker at the far end of the bar glances nervously at Kazimer. Recognition flickers in the biker's eyes, and he subtly tries to avoid eye contact. Cut to 44. Kazimer senses the tension and glances at the biker, recognizing him from a distant memory. The biker, realizing he's been spotted, decides to approach cautiously. Biker says,
"Kazimer Orlov, right?"
Kazimer says,
"Yeah, that's me. Do I know you?"
Biker says,
"We served together. Navy SEALs, Desert Storm."
Kazimer says,
"Desert Storm. Wait, you were."
The realization dawns on Kazimer as he looks at the biker more closely. Kazimer Mikhail Orlov says,
"McCoy, Eddie McCoy."
Eddie McCoy says,
"Damn right. It's been too long."
They share a firm handshake, the weight of their shared history hanging in the air. Lamont Moses Foreman says,
"You two know each other."
Eddie McCoy says,
"We were part of the same SEAL team during Operation Desert Storm."
Kazimer Mikhail Orlov says,
"Small world."
Lamont Moses Foreman says,
"You served together."
45. Eddie McCoy says,
"Yeah, we went through hell and back. Brought back memories, hearing about Desert Storm recently."
Lamont Moses Foreman says,
"You were there too."
Eddie McCoy says,
"Yep, saw a familiar face, and it's not just Kazimer."
As Lamont processes this unexpected connection, Eddie glances at him. Eddie McCoy says,
"You were part of the team too, weren't you?"
Lamont Moses Foreman says,
"Yeah, I was." Lamont Moses Foreman.
Eddie McCoy says,
"Foreman, never thought I'd run into you again. Small world indeed."
The trio shares a moment of camaraderie, an unspoken understanding of the bonds forged in the crucible of war. Kazimer Mikhail Orlov says,
"We're facing a different kind of war now, Salvador and Drakovich."
Eddie McCoy says,
"I heard. We'll help however we can, old team or not, we're in this together."
As Lamont, Kazimer, and Eddie clink their glasses, a new alliance forms, an unbreakable bond forged in the fires of the past and tested in the challenges of the present. 46. Eddie McCoy says,
"Kazimer, it's been years. I remember you had plans, something different after we left the Navy. What led you down this path?"
Kazimer's gaze drifts for a moment, as if revisiting a distant memory. He takes a sip of his drink before responding. Kazimer Mikhail Orlov says,
Life takes unexpected turns, Eddie. After the Navy, I found myself adrift, lost in a world that didn't make sense anymore. Became a hired killer, they called me the Master of Death.
Eddie McCoy says,
A hired killer. That's a far cry from the Kazimer I knew.
Kazimer Mikhail Orlov says,
It was a choice born out of desperation, a need to survive. In that world, I found a purpose, a way to make sense of the chaos. But it comes with a cost.
Eddie McCoy says,
We all carry scars from our past, but becoming an assassin.
Kazimer Mikhail Orlov says,
Sometimes, Eddie, you do things you never thought you would just to survive. It's a dark path, and I can't escape it.
Lamont Moses Foreman says,
We all have our demons, Kazimer. What matters is what we do now.
Kazimer nods, acknowledging the weight of his choices. 47, Eddie McCoy says,
If we're going after Salvador and Drakovich, we need everyone on board, including you, Kazimer.
Kazimer Mikhail Orlov says,
I'm in. We'll end this together.
The trio, bound by their shared past and the challenges ahead, raises their glasses in a silent vow to confront the shadows that threaten their lives. Cut to exterior city streets. Night. The team, now including Eddie, strategizes their next move against Salvador and Drakovich. Lamont's determination is mirrored in the faces of his newfound allies. Lamont Moses Foreman says,
We end this. For good.
Exterior abandoned warehouse. Night. The team, now united with Eddie, reconvenes at a new location, preparing for the inevitable clash with Salvador Rafael Delgado and Ivan Drakovich. Kazimer Mikhail Orlov says,
We can't afford any mistakes. Salvador and Drakovich won't hesitate to exploit our weaknesses.
Eddie McCoy says,
We've faced challenges before. We know what we're up against.
Lamont, determined to protect his family and bring justice, shares a brief moment of silent contemplation with the team. Lamont Moses Foreman says,
Let's make sure they don't see tomorrow.
Cut to 48, interior hidden location. Night. Salvador and Drakovich, hidden in the shadows, receive word of the team's movements. Salvador Rafael Delgado says,
They're coming for us. Good. Let them.
Ivan Drakovich says,
This will be their last mistake.
Cut to exterior city streets. Night. The team, armed and ready, approaches the abandoned warehouse where Salvador and Drakovich are believed to be hiding. Eddie, Kazimer, Lamont, and the others move with purpose, aware that this confrontation may be the decisive battle. Cut to interior abandoned warehouse. Night. As the team infiltrates the warehouse, they encounter fierce resistance from Salvador's well-armed forces. Gunfire echoes through the cavernous space as they push forward. Kazimer Mikhail Orlov says,
Salvador is waiting for us. Stay sharp.
Cornelia Keith says,
We find Motvy and Sally, and we end this.
The team presses on, overcoming Salvador's defenses with strategic precision. They navigate through the maze of crates and corridors, determined to rescue their loved ones. Cut to a confrontation between Lamont and Salvador looms, echoing their previous encounters. The air is charged with tension as the two adversaries lock eyes. 49. Lamont says,
It's over, Salvador.
Salvador Rafael Delgado says,
Is it, Lamont? You're a persistent one.
As they engage in a fierce battle, Eddie and Kazimer handle the remaining henchmen, leaving a trail of defeated foes in their wake. Cut to Cornelia, Franklin, and Shade infiltrate a separate part of the warehouse, searching for Motvy and Sally. Cornelia Keith says,
We need to find them before it's too late.
Interior abandoned warehouse. Night. As the intense battle rages on, the team fights through Salvador's forces, determined to reach Motvy and Sally and put an end to the threat once and for all. Cornelia Keith says,
Motvy, Sally.
The echoes of gunfire and clashes reverberate through the warehouse. Cornelia, Franklin, and Shade navigate the labyrinthine corridors, driven by the urgency of rescuing their loved ones. Cut to Lamont and Salvador's confrontation reaches its peak. They exchange powerful blows, each fueled by their own determination. The clash is a symphony of vengeance and justice echoing through the dimly lit space. Lamont Moses Foreman says,
Your reign of terror ends now.
50. Salvador Rafael Delgado says,
You can't stop what's already in motion, Lamont.
Their fight intensifies, the stakes escalating with each passing moment. Cut to Kazimer and Eddie, working in tandem, clear a path through Drakovich's remaining henchmen. The air is thick with tension as they approach the heart of the warehouse. Kazimer Mikhail Orlov says,
We're getting close. Stay focused.
Cut 2. Cornelia, Franklin, and Shade discover a hidden room where Motvie and Sally are bound. The relief on their faces is palpable. Cornelia Keith says,
Motvie, Sally.
Motvie Keith says,
Mom.
They rush to free the children, embracing them in a moment of reunion. Cornelia Keith says,
We're getting you out of here.
Cut 2. Back in the main area, Lamont and Salvador's confrontation takes a shocking turn when Drakovich, thought to be defeated, emerges from the shadows, wielding a powerful weapon. Ivan Drakovich says,
You didn't think it would be that easy, did you?
51. The team, now reunited, faces a new, formidable threat as Drakovich unleashes a barrage of firepower. Exterior abandoned warehouse. Night. As Drakovich emerges with a powerful weapon, a deafening roar fills the air. The team looks up to witness the unexpected arrival of an ominous airship hovering above the warehouse. It's adorned with Salvador's insignia, a symbol of his vast resources. Lamont Moses Foreman says,
What the hell is that?
Kazimer Mikhail Orlov says,
Salvador's backup has arrived. We're running out of time.
The airship's cargo doors open, revealing a group of heavily armed henchmen preparing to descend upon the team. The element of surprise now lies with Salvador. Ivan Drakovich says,
Meet the cavalry, Foreman. This is where your little resistance ends.
The team, outnumbered and facing an airborne threat, readies themselves for an unprecedented battle. Cornelia Keith says,
We can't fight them all.
Eddie McCoy says,
We don't have to. We just need to buy enough time for an escape.
The team strategically takes cover, exchanging gunfire with the henchmen descending from the airship. Explosions echo through the warehouse as the battle intensifies. Kazimer Mikhail Orlov says,
We need to find a way out of this.
Lamont Moses Foreman says,
That's our way out.
52. The team regroups, forming a defensive perimeter as they inch toward the airship. Meanwhile, Salvador watches the chaos unfold from a vantage point on the hovering vessel. Salvador Rafael Delgado says,
Enjoying the show, Lamont. This is just the beginning.
As the henchmen continue their assault, the team faces the daunting task of boarding the airship, hoping to turn the tide in their favor. Cut 2. Interior airship. Night. The team infiltrates the airship, encountering fierce resistance from Salvador's henchmen. The tight confines of the vessel become a battleground as they push toward the cockpit. Kazimer, Grim, we need to take control of this thing. Eddie, nodding, I'll handle the cockpit. You cover our backs. The team fights their way through the airship, facing a relentless onslaught from Salvador's forces. Cut 2. Interior airship cockpit. Night. Eddie reaches the cockpit, engaging in a fierce hand-to-hand combat with the pilot. The control panels flicker as the struggle ensues. Eddie McCoy says,
This ends now.
He incapacitates the pilot, seizing control of the airship just as the team battles their way to the cockpit door. Cut 2. Exterior abandoned warehouse. Night. The airship, now under Eddie's control, hovers over the warehouse. The team, battered but determined, makes a daring escape onto the hovering vessel. 53. Lamont Moses Foreman says,
We need to find Salvador and Drakovich. This ends tonight.
As the airship soars into the night sky, the team prepares for the final confrontation with Salvador and his sinister plans. Interior Salvador's airship. Night. The team moves stealthily through the dimly lit corridors of Salvador's airship, closing in on the heart of the vessel. Lamont, Eddie, Kazimer, Cornelia, and the others navigate the narrow passageways, their senses heightened in anticipation of the final confrontation. Cut 2. Interior, the command center. Night. Salvador and Drakovich, alerted to the intrusion, stand ready in the command center, surrounded by monitors displaying the unfolding situation. Salvador Rafael Delgado says,
Welcome to the endgame, Lamont.
Lamont, leading the team, enters the command center, his eyes locking onto Salvador. Lamont Moses Foreman says,
It ends tonight, Salvador. No more games.
Salvador Rafael Delgado says,
You've been a thorn in my side for too long, Lamont. But this is where it all comes crashing down.
Ivan Drakovich says,
You're out of moves, Foreman. Surrender now, and I might let you live.
Lamont's jaw tightens as he squares off against his adversaries. The room crackles with tension. 54. Lamont Moses Foreman says,
I'm not here for surrender. I'm here for justice.
A sudden surge of henchmen rushes into the command center, creating a chaotic melee. Eddie, Kazimer, and the others engage in intense combat, leaving Lamont and Salvador to face each other alone. Lamont dodges Salvador's attacks, countering with precision. Their confrontation is a dance of skill and vengeance, echoing the battles that brought them to this moment. Salvador Rafael Delgado says,
You can't stop what's already in motion, Lamont.
Lamont fights back with unwavering determination, each blow bringing him closer to ending Salvador's reign of terror. Lamont Moses Foreman says,
Your reign ends here.
As the battle reaches its climax, Lamont gains the upper hand, disarming Salvador and forcing him to the ground. Salvador Rafael Delgado says,
You think this changes anything? There are others waiting in the shadows.
Lamont Moses Foreman says,
We'll face them too. This ends now.
Salvador is restrained, and the remaining henchmen, overwhelmed by the team's relentless assault, surrender. Cut to exterior Salvador's airship. Night. The airship, now under the team's control, hovers in the night sky. The threat of Salvador and Drakovich is contained. Cut back to 55. Interior Command Center. Night. Lamont, victorious, looks around at the captured henchmen and the subdued Salvador. Lamont Moses Foreman says,
Your game is over.
As the team secures the airship, the authorities are alerted to apprehend the criminals. Exterior airship. Night. The authorities arrive, and Salvador, Drakovich, and their henchmen are taken into custody. The airship is secured, bringing an end to the nightmarish pursuit. Cut to Interior Air Force Control Room. Night. Captain Reyes coordinates with the ground forces, ensuring a smooth transition of the captured criminals. Captain Reyes says,
Great work, McCoy. We've got teams on their way to secure the airship. Your mission is complete.
Eddie McCoy says,
Thanks, Captain. We couldn't have done it without your help.
Cut back to Interior Salvador's airship. Night. With the threat neutralized, the team gathers in the command center, catching their breath after the intense confrontation. Lamont Moses Foreman says,
It's over. We did it.
Eddie McCoy says,
Couldn't have done it without everyone here. Teamwork prevailed.
56. Kazimer Mikhail Orlov says,
Salvador won't be causing any more trouble.
Cornelia Keith says,
Motvy and Salii are safe. That's all that matters.
Cut to exterior airship. Morning, the sun rises on a new day. The airship, once a tool of terror, now sits peacefully as authorities secure the area. Cut back to interior airship. Command center. Morning, the team reflects on the events that unfolded, the battles fought, and the triumph of justice. Franklin Kingston says,
Looks like we can finally put this nightmare behind us.
Lamont Moses Foreman says,
We took down Salvador, but there are others out there. We can't let our guard down.
Eddie McCoy says,
True, but for now, let's celebrate this victory. We earned it.
As the team exits the airship, they are greeted by the authorities and the dawn of a new chapter. Cut to exterior airship. Day. The team, standing together, watches as Salvador and Drakovich are led away in handcuffs. The threat has been eliminated, but the shadows of their past linger. 57. Exterior police station. Day. Salvador and Drakovich are escorted into the police station, surrounded by a heavy police presence. Lamont, Eddie, Kazimer, Cornelia, and the rest of the team observe from a distance. Lamont Moses Foreman says,
They won't be causing any more harm.
Eddie McCoy says,
Justice has been served.
Kazimer Mikhail Orlov says,
You did what you set out to do. Are you at peace now?
Lamont Moses Foreman says,
It's a step in the right direction. But there's more to be done.
The team disperses, their paths diverging as they each contemplate the events that transpired. Cut to interior Lamont's house. Night. Lamont, Angela, and Sally gather in the living room. The ordeal has taken a toll on the Foreman family, but they find solace in their unity. Lamont Moses Foreman says,
We made it through. We're stronger together.
Angela Foreman says,
I'm proud of you, Lamont. You never gave up.
The family shares a moment of quiet reflection, grateful for the support they found in each other and their newfound allies. Cut to 58. Exterior City Street. Day. Eddie, Kazimer, and the others part ways, their paths diverging as they return to their respective lives. The bonds forged in the crucible of adversity remain, a testament to the strength of their camaraderie. Cornelia Keith says,
You're welcome anytime, Eddie. Thank you for everything.
Eddie McCoy says,
You take care, Cornelia. If you ever need anything, you know where to find me.
The team disperses, carrying the weight of their shared experiences, forever changed by the events that unfolded. Cut to exterior police station. Day. Lamont stands outside the police station, watching as Salvador and Drakovich are taken away in a police van. The chapter may be closing, but Lamont knows that the shadows never truly disappear. Exterior Lamont's house. Weeks later, life gradually returns to normal for Lamont and his family. Angela, Sally, and Motley find solace in the everyday routines that were disrupted by the harrowing events. Lamont, however, feels a lingering unease, a sense that the shadows of the past may not be fully dispelled. Cut to interior Lamont's house. Living room. Night. Lamont sits in the dimly lit living room, a shadow of contemplation on his face. Angela joins him, sensing the weight he carries. Angela Foreman says,
Lamont, you've been distant. What's on your mind?
59. Lamont, serious, it's not over, Angela. There are more like Salvador out there, preying on the vulnerable. Angela Foreman says,
We can't save everyone, Lamont. But we did what we could for Motley and Sally.
Lamont Moses Foreman says,
I know. But I can't turn a blind eye to the injustice. I need to keep fighting.
Angela looks at Lamont, understanding the deep sense of duty that propels him forward. Cut to exterior city street. Day. Lamont reaches out to his newfound allies. Eddie, Kazimer, Cornelia, Franklin, and the others. A meeting is convened in a discreet location, away from prying eyes. Eddie McCoy says,
What's on your mind, Lamont?
Lamont says,
Salvador may be behind bars, but there are others. We need to expose them, dismantle their operations.
Cornelia says,
We can't let them continue exploiting the vulnerable.
Kazimer Mikhail Orlov says,
I'm with you, Lamont. We took down Salvador, but the fight against the shadows continues.
They form a pact, united by a common purpose. To seek justice and protect those who cannot protect themselves. Cut to 60. Interior underground base. Night. The team, now reassembled, prepares to embark on a new mission. Lamont stands at the forefront, a symbol of unwavering determination. Lamont Moses Foreman says,
We're not just fighting for ourselves. We're fighting for everyone who deserves justice.
As they gear up for the challenges ahead, a map unfolds, revealing locations marked with the names of shadowy figures, each representing a new chapter in their quest for justice. Exterior city. Night. The team moves through the shadows, tracking down leads and exposing the criminal network that lurks beneath the surface. Lamont, Eddie, Kazimer, Cornelia, and the others work tirelessly to dismantle the operations of those who exploit the vulnerable. Cut to interior underground base. Night. The team convenes in their hidden base, poring over intel, connecting dots, and strategizing their next move. The map is filled with pins marking the locations of criminal activity. Eddie McCoy says,
These operations run deep. We need to be strategic about how we approach this.
Kazimer Mikhail Orlov says,
Agreed. We can't afford to make mistakes. Lives are at stake.
Cornelia Keith says,
Let's make sure they see justice served.
As they prepare to embark on another mission, the team shares a moment of camaraderie, fueled by a shared 61 commitment to make a difference. Cut to exterior city. Day. The team executes a series of coordinated raids, liberating victims, and dismantling the criminal infrastructure. The shadows retreat as the team shines a light on the darkness that once consumed the city. Cut to interior police station. Night. Lamont and the team, working in tandem with law enforcement, ensure that the criminals they apprehend face the full extent of the law. The city begins to heal, and the Foreman family finds a renewed sense of peace. Cut to exterior city. Weeks later, the city transforms as the criminal network crumbles. Lamont's actions inspire others to stand up against injustice. The team becomes a symbol of hope, showing that even in the darkest times, a group of determined individuals can make a difference. Cut to interior Lamont's house. Night. Lamont returns home after a long day, finding solace in the warmth of his family. Angela Foreman says,
Smiling, you're making a difference, Lamont. The city is safer because of you.
Lamont Moses Foreman says,
But there's always more work to be done.
Sally Foreman says,
We're proud of you, Dad.
62. As Lamont embraces his family, he knows that the fight against the shadows may never truly end. But with each victory, they bring a little more light to the world. Fade out. Exterior city. Day. The city continues to recover, and the team's efforts have not gone unnoticed. The media starts covering their exploits, dubbing them the guardians of justice. Lamont, Eddie, Kazimer, Cornelia, and the others become local heroes, inspiring a wave of activism against criminal elements. Cut to interior underground base. Night. The team gathers to assess their progress and plan their next moves. The map that once highlighted criminal activity is now dotted with success stories, places where justice has been restored. Eddie McCoy says,
"We're making a real impact. The city is starting to breathe again."
Kazimer Mikhail Orlov says,
"But we can't get complacent. There's always someone waiting in the shadows."
Cornelia Keith says,
"Let them come. We'll be ready."
As the team prepares for their next mission, they receive an anonymous tip about a major criminal organization operating in the city. Lamont Moses Foreman says,
"This could be the one we've been looking for. Let's move."
Cut to 63, exterior city skyline. Night. The team infiltrates the heart of the criminal organization, moving stealthily through the city. Their goal is to expose the mastermind orchestrating the criminal activities that have plagued the city for too long. Cut to interior criminal organization's lair. Night. The team, hidden in the shadows, watches as the criminal mastermind reveals themselves, a figure known only as the puppeteer. The puppeteer says,
"You thought you could dismantle our operations. You're playing right into my hands."
Lamont Moses Foreman says,
"Your reign of terror ends tonight."
A high-stakes confrontation ensues as the team faces off against the puppeteer and their henchmen. The fate of the city hangs in the balance. Cut to exterior city. Day. In the aftermath of the intense battle, the puppeteer is apprehended, and the criminal organization crumbles. The city celebrates as justice prevails once again. Cut to interior underground base. Night. The team reflects on their victories, but the shadows persist. Eddie McCoy says,
"There will always be someone trying to exploit the vulnerable. We can't stop fighting."
64. Kazimer Mikhail Orlov says,
"As long as there's injustice, we'll be there to face it."
Cornelia Keith says,
"Together, we'll keep shining a light on the shadows."
Fade out. Exterior city. Day. The team intensifies their efforts, relentlessly pursuing the new threat that has emerged in the city. The symbol leads them to a powerful figure known as the Enigma, a shadowy mastermind orchestrating criminal activities with unparalleled cunning. Cut to interior underground base. Night. The team, facing their toughest challenge yet, strategizes on how to uncover the Enigma's identity and dismantle their operation. Lamont Moses Foreman says,
"We've faced formidable foes before, but the Enigma is different. We need to be one step ahead."
Eddie McCoy says,
"Our intel suggests they have influence at the highest levels. We'll need to expose them without becoming pawns in their game."
Kazimer Mikhail Orlov says,
"This won't be easy, but it's what we signed up for. Let's bring the Enigma into the light."
Cut to 65, exterior city skyline. Night. The team embarks on a series of covert missions, exposing corruption, unraveling the Enigma's network, and freeing the city from their insidious influence. Each victory brings them closer to the elusive mastermind. Cut to interior underground base. Night. As the Enigma's web unravels, the team discovers shocking connections to influential figures in the city, revealing a network of corruption that extends far beyond their initial scope. Cornelia Keith says,
"This goes deeper than we thought. We are dealing with a systemic issue."
Franklin Kingston says,
"We can't fight this alone. We need to expose the truth to the public."
Cut to exterior city. Day. The team, now joined by activists, journalists, and citizens rallying behind their cause, stages a series of protests and exposes the Enigma's web of corruption through various media outlets. Cut to interior city hall. Day. Under mounting public pressure, city officials launch investigations into the Enigma's influence. The team's efforts have sparked a movement for change. City official says,
"We won't tolerate corruption. Justice will prevail."
Cut to 66, exterior city. Night. The Enigma, cornered by the combined efforts of the team and the city's institutions, attempts a desperate escape. Lamont and the others intercept them in a high-stakes confrontation. Lamont Moses Foreman says,
"Your reign of shadows ends now. The city deserves better."
The Enigma is apprehended, and the city begins to heal from the wounds inflicted by corruption and criminal influence. Cut to exterior city. Day. Epilogue. The city, once plagued by darkness, now basks in the light of justice and unity. Lamont and the team, having exposed the Enigma and dismantled their influence, stand as symbols of resilience and hope. Lamont Moses Foreman says,
"We've faced the shadows, and will continue to stand against them. But the city belongs to its people, and together, we'll ensure its future is bright.
Fade to exterior industrial area. Night. A desolate industrial area, shrouded in shadows, reveals the gruesome aftermath of a violent struggle. The remains of Jessica Robertson, the fearless news reporter, are discovered by a passing police officer. Police officer says,
"We need backup and forensics at the abandoned warehouse on Miller Street. Looks like we've got another one."
Cut to 67, Interior Police Station, Homicide Division. Day. The investigation into Jessica Robertson's death is in full swing. Detective Catherine Wallace, a seasoned investigator with a no-nonsense attitude, takes charge. Detective Wallace says,
Robertson was onto something big. We find out who did this, we might expose the entire operation.
Forensics experts collect evidence as Detective Wallace studies the crime scene photos. Cut to Interior Newsroom. Day. A somber atmosphere looms over the newsroom as Lamont Foreman watches the report about Jessica's death on the television. News anchor says,
Jessica Robertson, known for her fearless reporting, was found brutally murdered last night. The police are treating it as a homicide and are urging anyone with information to come forward.
Cut to exterior city streets. Night. A mysterious figure, hidden in the shadows, watches the news report on a handheld device. A sinister smile plays across their face. Mysterious figure says,
"The shadows are deeper than they realize."
Cut to Interior Police Station, Interrogation Room. Later, Detective Wallace interrogates a suspect, but the suspect remains tight-lipped. The investigation leads her down a complex web of secrets and conspiracies. 68. Detective Wallace says,
You might think you can hide in the shadows, but justice will find you.
Several tense moments pass. Detective Wallace says,
You can't escape this, and you won't be the first to try. Talk.
The suspect, visibly shaken, finally breaks under the pressure. Suspect says,
Okay. Delgado's people. They forced me. They said if I didn't cooperate, my family would suffer.
Detective Wallace leans in, her eyes narrowing. Detective Wallace says,
Delgado, what does he have to do with Jessica's murder?
Suspect says,
He wanted her gone. She was too close, digging into things she shouldn't.
Cut to Interior Police Interrogation Room. Later, the suspect, now in custody, sits across from Detective Wallace. She is relentless in her questioning. Detective Wallace says,
You're looking at a long time behind bars unless you start cooperating fully. What does Delgado want to hide?
Suspect says,
I don't know all the details, but they were determined to silence.
69. Suspect says,
Jessica. Delgado's got connections everywhere.
Cut to Exterior Police Station. Night. Salvador Rafael Delgado and Ivan Drakovich are brought into the police station in handcuffs. Salvador's lawyer, Charles Anderson, a shrewd and well-connected legal expert, is already waiting. Charles Anderson says,
This is harassment, Detective Wallace. My clients won't say a word without their lawyers present.
Detective Wallace says,
Your clients are facing serious charges. They won't escape justice.
As the suspects are led away for questioning, the investigation into Jessica's murder takes a crucial turn, pitting Detective Wallace against Salvador's legal maneuvers. Interior Police Interrogation Room. Continuous. Detective Wallace, frustrated by the legal maneuvers, steps out of the room. Lamont Moses Foreman, the chief of police for the LAPD, waits in the hallway. Detective Wallace says,
Lamont, I need something concrete. Anderson's playing games, and I can't afford to let them slip through the cracks.
Lamont Moses Foreman says,
I've got your back, Catherine. Delgado's been under our radar for too long. Here's the evidence we've compiled on his operations. Use it wisely.
Detective Wallace takes the folder, glancing through the damning evidence against Delgado. 70. Detective Wallace says,
This is what I needed. Let's expose the truth.
Cut to Interior Police Interrogation Room. Later, Detective Wallace returns, armed with new information. She confronts Salvador and Ivan with the evidence. Detective Wallace says,
You can try to play your legal games, but the evidence speaks for itself. You won't escape justice.
Charles Anderson says,
This is a bluff, Detective. You can't prove anything.
Just then, Detective Wallace reveals a surveillance video showing Salvador's direct involvement in criminal activities. Detective Wallace says,
This isn't a bluff. Your empire is falling, Delgado.
Cut to Exterior Police Station. Night. News reporters swarm the police station, capturing the unfolding events. News reporter says,
Chief Foreman and Detective Wallace are leading a major crackdown on organized crime. Sources suggest it's linked to the recent murder of reporter Jessica Robertson.
Cut to interior police interrogation room. Later, Detective Wallace, fueled by determination, continues the intense interrogation, determined to bring Salvador Rafael Delgado and his empire to justice. 71. Cut to interior courtroom. Day. The trial of Salvador Rafael Delgado and Ivan Drakovich is underway. Detective Wallace, now a key witness, presents the damning evidence she gathered. The courtroom is tense as the prosecution builds a compelling case. Prosecutor says,
This man, Salvador Rafael Delgado, operated a criminal empire, orchestrating drug deals, ordering murders, and masterminding kidnappings. We have witnesses, documents, and surveillance footage linking him directly to these heinous crimes.
The courtroom watches, rapt, as Detective Wallace reveals the extent of Delgado's criminal activities. Lamont Moses Foreman, the chief of police, sits among the spectators, a steely expression on his face. Cut to interior courtroom. Later, Ivan Drakovich, facing his charges, exchanges glances with Salvador. Their once confident demeanor now replaced with unease. Judge says,
Salvador Rafael Delgado and Ivan Drakovich, you are hereby found guilty on all charges. The court sentences you to the maximum extent of the law.
Salvador's lawyer, Charles Anderson, attempts to argue for leniency, but the overwhelming evidence leaves no room for negotiation. Cut to interior prison transport. Day. Salvador and Ivan, now in prison uniforms, are escorted to a waiting prison transport. The weight of their crime settles heavily on them as they exchange a knowing look. 72. Cut to exterior courthouse. Day. News reporters gather outside the courthouse, broadcasting the verdict to the world. News reporter says,
Salvador Rafael Delgado, once the most feared crime lord, has been brought to justice. This trial marks a significant victory in the ongoing fight against organized crime.
Cut to interior police station. Night. Detective Wallace, exhausted but satisfied, returns to the police station. Lamont Foreman approaches her, offering a nod of acknowledgement. Lamont Moses Foreman says,
You did it, Catherine. We took down a kingpin.
Detective Wallace says,
It's not just about us, Chief. It's about justice prevailing.
Exterior city. Day. The city breathes a collective sigh of relief as news of Salvador Rafael Delgado's conviction spreads. The once feared crime lord is now behind bars, and the city begins to heal from the scars of his criminal empire. Cut to interior police station. Detective Wallace's desk. Day. Detective Wallace sits at her desk, sorting through case files. Lamont Foreman walks in. Lamont Moses Foreman says,
Catherine, there's always another threat waiting to rise. We need to stay vigilant.
73. Detective Wallace says,
I know, Chief. We've dismantled Delgado's empire, but the shadows never rest.
Cut to exterior city skyline. Night. As night falls, the city's skyline is illuminated. Lamont Foreman gazes out from his office window, contemplating the ongoing battle against crime. Cut to interior prison. Visitation room. Day. Salvador sits behind a glass partition, meeting with Charles Anderson. Charles Anderson says,
We're working on an appeal, Salvador. There might be a way to reduce your sentence.
Salvador Rafael Delgado says,
Save your efforts. This isn't over.
Cut to interior police station. Lamont's office. Day. Lamont receives a call. He listens intently, his expression growing serious. Lamont says,
I'll be there.
He hangs up, a determined look in his eyes. Cut to exterior prison. Day. A heavily guarded prison transport arrives. Lamont steps out, flanked by detectives. Cut to 74. Interior prison. Visitation room. Later, Lamont faces Salvador across the glass partition. Lamont Moses Foreman says,
This isn't a victory, Salvador. It's a warning to others like you.
Salvador says,
You might have won this battle, Lamont, but the war isn't over.
The tension lingers as the two adversaries lock eyes. Fade out. Exterior city skyline. Night. The city skyline glows with an eerie beauty as the investigation intensifies. Fade out. Interior Franklin's apartment. Day. Franklin Kingston, determined to turn his life around, wakes up in his modest apartment. The sunlight filters through the curtains, casting a hopeful glow. Cut to exterior city streets. Day. Franklin, dressed in clean clothes, walks through the bustling city streets. His eyes reflect newfound determination as he heads toward a local employment agency. Cut to Interior Employment Agency. Day. Franklin sits across from a job counselor, discussing potential opportunities. Job counselor says,
"We've got a few options that match your skills, Franklin. Let's get you back in the workforce."
75. Cut to Exterior Various Job Locations. Montage. Franklin is seen at different job locations, a construction site, a warehouse, a delivery service. He puts in hard work, proving his worth. Cut to Interior Franklin's apartment. Night. Franklin counts his paycheck, a sense of accomplishment on his face. The money represents not just income but a step towards rebuilding his life. Cut to Exterior City Park. Day. Franklin, with a newfound sense of purpose, sits on a park bench during his lunch break. He observes people passing by, grateful for the opportunity to change his life. Cut to Interior Franklin's apartment. Night. Franklin updates his resume on a worn-out laptop, showcasing the new skills he's acquired. The room reflects a subtle transformation, a cleaner space, a more organized life. Cut to Exterior Local Diner. Day. Franklin treats himself to a simple meal at a local diner, savoring the taste of independence and self-sufficiency. Cut to Interior Employment Agency. Day. Franklin returns to the employment agency, a sense of pride evident in his demeanor. Job counselor says,
"You've come a long way, Franklin. Keep up the good work."
Cut to 76. Exterior Franklin's apartment. Day. Franklin, with a newfound stability, unlocks his apartment door. He steps inside, ready to face a brighter future. Fade out. Interior Kazimer's apartment. Night. Kazimer sits in a dimly lit room, cleaning his weapons. Cornelia enters, her eyes reflecting a mix of guilt and hesitation. Kazimer Mikhail Orlov says,
"Cornelia, we need to talk."
Cornelia Keith says,
"I know. I should have told you."
Kazimer sets aside his tools, his piercing gaze fixed on Cornelia. Kazimer Mikhail Orlov says,
"Why didn't you mention you had a son? Our son."
Cornelia Keith says,
"I was scared, Cass. Scared of how you'd react, scared of bringing you into this mess."
Kazimer stands, the gravity of the revelation sinking in. Kazimer Mikhail Orlov says,
"You kept our child a secret. For how long?"
Cornelia Keith says,
Motvi is 6. I thought I was protecting him."
Kazimer paces the room, processing the weight of this revelation. 77. Kazimer says,
"Protecting him from what? From me."
Cornelia says,
"From the life you lead. I didn't want him involved in the violence, the danger."
Kazimer, conflicted, approaches Cornelia, a mixture of anger and vulnerability in his eyes. Kazimer says,
"You should have given me the choice, Cornelia. Motvi is my son too."
Cornelia Keith says,
"I was scared you'd walk away. I didn't want to burden you with this."
Kazimer takes a deep breath, his anger subsiding. Kazimer Mikhail Orlov says,
"We're in this together now. Motvi is my son, and I'll protect both of you."
Cornelia Keith says,
"I hoped you'd say that."
As they face the challenges ahead, Kazimer and Cornelia confront the complexities of their shared past and the uncertain future that now binds them together. Fade out. Interior White House. Day. A grand hall in the White House is adorned with flags and regal decor. Lamont, Eddie, Kazimer, Franklin, and Cornelia stand in a line, dressed in formal attire, awaiting an audience with the President of the United States. Secret Service agent says,
"The President will see you now."
78. They enter the Oval Office, where the President stands, a sense of gratitude in their eyes. President says,
"You've done a tremendous service to this country. Your bravery and dedication have not gone unnoticed."
The President hands each of them awards for their exceptional contributions in dismantling Salvador Delgado's criminal empire. Lamont Moses Foreman says,
"Thank you, Mr. President. We just did what needed to be done."
Cut to Interior White House, reception area. Later, after the ceremony, Lamont, Eddie, Kazimer, Franklin, and Cornelia gather in a reception area, still in awe of the prestigious surroundings. Lamont Moses Foreman says,
"Where's Shade? Haven't seen him since we took down the puppeteer."
Kazimer Mikhail Orlov says,
"Shade has a way of blending in. He's probably here, watching."
As if on cue, Shade emerges from the shadows, his presence known. Shade says,
"You guys clean up well."
Cornelia Keith says,
"Shade, you were here the whole time."
79. Shade says,
Always watching, Cornelia. Congratulations on the awards, by the way.
Eddie McCoy says,
How do you manage to stay hidden?
Shade says,
It's my specialty, Eddie, hiding in plain sight.
The group, a mix of surprise and amusement, welcomes Shade into their circle. President says,
If I may, I'd like to personally thank Shade for his discreet assistance.
Shade tips an imaginary hat, embracing his enigmatic persona. Interior White House. Reception area. Continuous. As Lamont, Kazimer, Eddie, Cornelia, Franklin, and Shade bask in the aftermath of the award ceremony, a distinguished figure enters the room. The group's attention turns toward their commanding officer, a seasoned Navy SEAL officer, standing with a proud yet stern demeanor. Commanding officer says,
Well, look at you three. Never thought I'd see the day.
Lamont Moses Foreman says,
Sir. It's an honor.
Kazimer Mikhail Orlov says,
Commander Stevens, it's been a while.
80. Eddie McCoy says,
Still keeping us on our toes, I see.
Commanding officer says,
Once a SEAL, always a SEAL. I heard about your exploits, and I couldn't be prouder.
They exchange handshakes and nods, a silent camaraderie forged in the crucible of their SEAL days. Commanding officer says,
And who's this mysterious fellow?
Shade says,
Call me Shade, Commander. I work in the shadows.
Commanding officer says,
The shadows, huh? Well, we all have our specialties.
Cornelia says,
Commander Stevens, this is Franklin Kingston. He played a crucial role in all of this.
Commanding officer says,
Good to meet you, Franklin. Seems like you've joined quite the team.
The room buzzes with a shared sense of accomplishment and nostalgia, bridging the gap between past and present. Commanding officer says,
You've made your country proud. Keep watching each other's backs.
As the commanding officer departs, leaving the group to reflect on their journey, Shade disappears into the shadows, leaving a lingering air of mystery. 81. Interior White House. Reception area. Continuous. Unbeknownst to the group, Victor, Salvador's loyal enforcer, infiltrates the crowd, dressed inconspicuously among the onlookers. His eyes narrow as he witnesses the camaraderie and recognition bestowed upon Lamont, Kazimer, Eddie, and the others. Victor says,
So, this is where they celebrate their victories.
Victor, fueled by a vengeful determination, scans the room for any sign of weakness. He notices Shade slipping away into the shadows and decides to follow suit. Cut to exterior White House grounds. Later, Victor, using his experience in covert operations, slips away unnoticed by the bustling crowd. He finds a secluded spot, away from prying eyes, to formulate his plan. Victor says,
Lamont Foreman. You won't celebrate for long.
Victor retrieves a concealed communication device, attempting to reach out to any remaining allies within the criminal underworld. Victor says,
Gather the crew. We have a new target.
As Victor disappears into the shadows, a sinister plot begins to unfold against Lamont and those who played a role in Salvador's downfall. Fade out. Interior White House. Secluded area. Continuous. Victor, deep in thought about his plans for revenge, is unaware that he's being watched. The shadows seem to come alive as Shade materializes, his presence sending a chill down Victor's spine. 82. Shade says,
You're a bold one, Victor. Plotting revenge right under their noses.
Victor says,
Shade, I presume. You won't stop me.
Before Victor can react, Shade moves with a speed and precision that catches him off guard. The two engage in a fierce, silent struggle, blending into the darkness. Cut to interior White House. Reception area. Continuous. Lamont, Kazimer, and the others continue their celebrations, oblivious to the covert battle happening in the shadows. Cut back to secluded area. Continuous. The fight between Victor and Shade intensifies, each move executed with deadly precision. Shade, despite his enigmatic nature, proves to be a formidable opponent. Shade says,
You're outmatched, Victor.
With a swift and calculated maneuver, Shade disarms Victor and delivers a powerful blow, forcing him to retreat. Victor says,
This isn't over.
Shade watches as Victor disappears into the night, a mysterious figure with his own agenda. Cut to interior White House. Reception area. Later, the celebration continues, but the threat of Victor's retaliation lingers in the shadows, unseen by those reveling in their hard-earned victories. Fade out. 83. Interior White House. Reception area. continuous. The celebratory atmosphere in the reception area is lively, with dignitaries and heroes mingling amid the congratulations. Kazimer, still in his formal attire, pulls Eddie aside for a private conversation. Kazimer Mikhail Orlov says,
Eddie, there's something I've been meaning to ask. How did you manage to arrange for the Air Force to show up at the right time during the mission?
Eddie McCoy says,
That. Well, I have a friend in the Air Force.
Kazimer raises an eyebrow, intrigued. Kazimer Mikhail Orlov says,
A friend. Care to elaborate?
Eddie McCoy says,
Captain Reyes. We served together in the military. He owed me a favor, so I called it in.
Kazimer Mikhail Orlov says,
Reyes, that explains the precise timing.
Eddie McCoy says,
Exactly. We go way back. He's a reliable guy.
Kazimer contemplates Eddie's explanation, satisfied with the clarity. Kazimer Mikhail Orlov says,
All right, Eddie, just making sure there were no surprises.
Eddie McCoy says,
No secrets here, my friend. Just old favors and good connections.
84. As they return to the festivities, the camaraderie between Kazimer and Eddie prevails, with the celebration unfolding without a hint of the underlying tensions. Fade out. Interior downtown bar. Night. The clinking of glasses and murmurs of patrons fill the dimly lit bar. Kazimer sits at the counter, nursing a drink, his thoughts still lingering on the events at the White House. The door swings open, and in walks the biker, the same one Kazimer encountered before. Biker says,
Well, if it ain't the Master of Death himself.
Kazimer glances at the biker, recognition flickering in his eyes. Kazimer Mikhail Orlov says,
We've met before.
Biker says,
Yeah, during that little scuffle we had a while back. Good times.
Kazimer chuckles, appreciating the biker's straightforward demeanor. Kazimer Mikhail Orlov says,
What brings you here?
Biker says,
Heard about the White House thing. Congratulations on the commendation.
Kazimer raises an eyebrow, surprised that the news has already spread. Kazimer Mikhail Orlov says,
Thanks. Didn't think it would make headlines.
85. Biker says,
Word travels fast in this town. You took down some big names. That's worth celebrating.
Kazimer nods, appreciating the biker's acknowledgement. Kazimer Mikhail Orlov says,
You seem well informed.
Biker says,
I keep my ear to the ground. It's a small world, especially for folks like us.
Kazimer offers a toast, clinking glasses with the biker. Kazimer Mikhail Orlov says,
To surviving and thriving in this small world.
Biker says,
To that.
As they share a moment of camaraderie, the bar continues to hum with activity, concealing the complexities of their pasts and the mysteries that bind them. Fade out. Exterior downtown bar. Night. The neon lights of the bar cast a vibrant glow as Kazimer and the biker step out into the cool night air. The street buzzes with activity, but the two find a quieter corner to continue their conversation. Biker says,
So, Master of Death, what's next on the agenda?
Kazimer takes a thoughtful sip of his drink, contemplating the uncertainties that lie ahead. 86. Kazimer Mikhail Orlov says,
Never a shortage of trouble in this city, but I'm hoping for a quieter stretch.
Biker says,
Quieter, not your style, is it?
Kazimer Mikhail Orlov says,
Sometimes you need a break from the chaos. Speaking of which, what brings you around? You seem more than just a casual observer.
Biker says,
Word on the street is there might be some trouble brewing. Figured I'd stay in the loop.
Kazimer senses a shared understanding between them, forged in the crucible of their unpredictable lives. Kazimer Mikhail Orlov says,
Trouble seems to find us, doesn't it?
Biker says,
Ain't that the truth?
As they exchange a nod, a subtle camaraderie develops between the two, acknowledging the shared path they tread in the shadows of the city. Kazimer Mikhail Orlov says,
Well, if trouble does come knocking, I'll be ready.
Biker says,
Likewise, Master of Death.
They part ways, each disappearing into the night, where the city's secrets and challenges await. Fade out. 87. Interior Kazimer's apartment. Night. Kazimer returns to the solitude of his apartment, the soft glow of city lights filtering through the windows. As he settles into his contemplative space, his cell phone buzzes on the table. He glances at the screen, an unlisted number. Kazimer Mikhail Orlov says,
Speak.
A disguised voice echoes through the line, providing details of a new mission, a name, a target, and a location. Kazimer listens intently, his expression unreadable. Disguised voice says,
This one's high profile. Handle it discreetly.
Kazimer, without a word, accepts the mission, ending the call with a purposeful click. Cut to exterior night skyline. Later, Kazimer, cloaked in shadows, navigates the labyrinthine streets to the target's location. The city sleeps as he moves with the grace of a predator, unseen and unheard. Cut to interior target's residence. Night. Silently infiltrating the target's secure domain, Kazimer executes the mission with cold precision. The mission's success is marked by the absence of any disturbance, a ghost in the night. Cut to exterior city alley. Later, Kazimer, once again veiled in the anonymity of darkness, rendezvous with a contact who hands him an envelope. The payment, a silent acknowledgement of a job well done. Contact says,
"You never disappoint, Master of Death."
88. Kazimer takes the envelope without a word, acknowledging the unspoken understanding between them. Cut to interior Kazimer's apartment. Night. Back in his apartment, Kazimer counts the bills, his face betraying no emotion. The task is complete, and the city's balance, however precarious, is maintained. Fade to black. Roll end credits. Post-credits scene. Fade in. Exterior city skyline. Night. The cityscape glows beneath the moonlight, revealing a moment of calm after the intense events of Master of Death 1, Quest for Revenge. Cut to interior underground base. Night. Lamont, Eddie, Kazimer, Cornelia, and the team gather, reflecting on their recent victories and the challenges that lie ahead. Lamont Moses Foreman says,
"We made a difference tonight, but the shadows are relentless. We need to stay vigilant."
Eddie McCoy says,
"Agreed. There's always another threat lurking in the darkness."
As the team discusses their next steps, a mysterious figure enters the room, obscured by shadows. Mysterious figure says,
"You've done well, Lamont, but the real game is just beginning."
89. The team turns, surprised and wary. Fade to interior high-security prison. Day. Salvador Rafael Delgado and Ivan Drakovich, now stripped of their power and influence, are confined to their prison cells. The harsh reality of their downfall weighs heavily on them. Salvador Rafael Delgado says,
"This isn't over, Ivan. We'll rise again."
Ivan Drakovich says,
"Perhaps, but for now, we're just two men behind bars."
As they exchange ominous glances, a prison guard approaches Salvador's cell. Prison guard says,
"Looks like the mighty crime lord is no more. Welcome to your new reality."
Salvador clenches his fists, seething with anger. Cut to exterior prison yard. Later, Salvador and Ivan, now wearing prison uniforms, navigate the tense environment. The other inmates eye them warily, recognizing the once powerful figures. Ivan Drakovich says,
"We need to watch our backs in here."
Salvador Rafael Delgado says,
"We won't stay here for long. The city will crumble without our influence."
Cut to 90. Interior visitation room. Weeks later, a visitation room, separated by thick glass, sees Salvador receiving a surprise visitor. Lamont Foreman stands on the other side, a stern expression on his face. Lamont Moses Foreman says,
"Your reign is over, Salvador. But I'm keeping a close eye on you."
Salvador Rafael Delgado says,
"You might have won this battle, Lamont, but the war is far from over."
Lamont leaves, leaving Salvador to stew in his cell. Cut to interior prison library. Day. Ivan, in the prison library, receives a mysterious letter. It's an intricate drawing of a serpent, a symbol he recognizes. The letter reads, "The shadows never rest." Ivan Drakovich says,
"Seems like we have allies, Salvador. The game isn't over yet."
Fade out. The end.
Greetings, esteemed adventurers and cosmic wonders. Today, as we stand at the crossroads of fantasy and science fiction, we invite you to partake in a noble quest. But before we embark on this enchanting journey, let us harness the power that lies at your fingertips. The like, subscribe, comment, and share buttons. These seemingly ordinary buttons hold the key to extraordinary feats. Behold the like button, a mere tap, yet a formidable spell of approval upon our content. Your likes are the elixirs that fortify our spirit and propel our channel to greater heights. Next, the subscribe button, a mystical key that unlocks the gates to our fantastical world. By subscribing, you become a revered member of our fellowship, ensuring you never miss a moment of our magical saga. Now enter the comment section, your personal parchment to inscribe your thoughts, feelings, and magical incantations. Your comments are the echoes of wisdom resonating through the enchanted forest of our community. And behold the share button, a celestial artifact that scatters the magic far and wide. Share the joy with fellow adventurers and cosmic wayfarers, so they too may join our noble quest. Ready yourselves, noble viewers, for the quest awaits. Wield your magical powers, like, subscribe, comment, and share. Together, let us forge this channel into a sanctuary of fantasy and a haven for science fiction aficionados. Gratitude dear patrons, for being integral to our mystical sojourn. Until our paths converge once more, may your days be adorned with enchantment, and your nights be filled with stardust. This is Ryan Baker, bidding you farewell from Fantasy Science Fiction Storynory. Remember to spread the magic.